Okay, going over to my sewing machine, I am going to, you can see that I pinned up that one side, and I'm going to put that into my machine. Now the fact is there is not very much fabric at this top tip to pull through. So what I would want you to do is start a little bit further down and go backwards to the tip, and then for your back stitch, and then come down. If you start out here on the tip, you will have problems with that jamming up in your machine. Okay, so I'm on a straight stitch. Okay, my seam allowance is going to be a 5/8. Okay, so a 5/8 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to start not at the end over here, down further. Okay. So I went backwards, okay? I started out going backwards to the end, okay? And then I'm going to go back forward all the way to the edge, okay? Now I'm just going to go back forward. And that function as my back stitch, and make sure that my hat doesn't get, the tip of my hat doesn't get stuck in my machine. Pulling out those pins as you go, keeping this curve right on the seam allowance line. Okay, now we're getting close to the end of the seam where I have my pin marking. So here, this is the cut opening, okay, and this is that pin mark that we put in. What we're going to do is we're going to veer off the edge and come off right where this pin is. The thing is we can't backstitch because that'll make the fabric perk out a little bit where we don't want it to perk out. So what we have to do is we have to turn our machine, instead of at a 2.5, we're going to turn it down to like a 1 stitch length. Okay, so right about here I'm going to turn it down to a 1 stitch length as I'm swinging off to the edge. Okay, so start to curve towards that pin. Nice even curve. You don't want to curve too fast because then you'll have a pucker. Okay, now right here before I go off the edge right at my pin mark, I'm going to turn my machine to a stitch length of 1. That's going to put the stitches really close together and act as a back stitch so that this doesn't fall apart and it doesn't pucker. So I'm going to come off my fabric right there where that pin was. I turned my machine down to a stitch length of 1. See how it's going to take a while to come off? And then I just go right off the edge. So if you can kind of see there, I did a nice curve and veered off the edge, and at the end I did a stitch length of 1 so that those stitches were nice and close together so they do not fall apart or perk at all. Okay.